We're headed into week 9, and it's time for some updated power rankings from the Big Mountain.
We are halfway through the season, and we're back on the Big Mountain, where we bring you a detailed focus on the Big Ten and the Mountain West.
Hey, it's great to have you here again. I am JY. This is my good friend Steve. This is our third second update, third round of power rankings. We got some movement here, Steve.
Yeah.
We've got some movement. We talked about after our second update that we knew some things were going to change, and lo and behold, things are changing.
A lot of things happened in the last couple of weeks.
A lot of things. We got some movers up, movers down, some movers sideways, but let's get into it. Let's start, as if you've seen this before, we kind of start at the bottom, work our way all the way up to number 1, and we had Michigan number 1 last time. Let's see if Michigan is still number 1 or what happened up there. But again, we'll start at the bottom. So here we got the bottom dwellers: Hawaii, New Mexico, Michigan State. They've kind of been down here in the bottom 3 or 4 pretty much the entire time we've done this. The one that has moved up a fair amount is Nevada. I know, Steve, you moved them up quite a bit after their upset win versus San Diego State.
Yeah.
So they're up to 25th, going up from 29th in our last power rankings. Some that you see down here towards the bottom, probably maybe not surprising, but one of the biggest, if not the biggest mover, San Diego State. We just talked about Nevada moving up because of the win against them, and they are way down this week. Down they were in 19th. They were in the top 20. They're down to 27th.
Yeah, I mean, they just keep dropping like a rock. These teams at the bottom, all of them, we've pretty much, I think we're consolidated now. We know who the worst teams are in the Big Ten. We know who the worst teams are in the Mountain West. I think there was a point where we had New Mexico and Hawaii swapped,
right?
But they played each other recently, right? And
they play each other this week.
Oh, they play each other this week.
Yeah.
Okay, so these teams, at least Nevada has something positive going for them. I can't really say too much about the rest of that group. Anything positive, we can say Nevada got a win. They got something positive, so they moved up a little bit. They're trying to climb out of that the toilet bowl of the rankings.
They're trying, and honestly, I mean, I could see New Mexico moving up. I got to be honest with you. I know I've said it a little bit before. I think they have the offense to be able to do that. And I may have misspoke. New Mexico actually might play Nevada this week, not Hawaii. You may have been right there. So made a boo-boo there. But anyway, let's look at a couple others. So Boise State down 6. They move out of our top 20. They're now sitting in 21st, and they've got a big game coming up here this week against Wyoming in Boise. But if they're going to try to correct the season here and get themselves back into potential Mountain West category contention, they've got to win this game. A must-win game for Boise State.
Yeah, and really they still have all of their probably most of their goals ahead of them. If they have some huge games going, they can still fight their way into that Mountain West championship game.
Right.
Unfortunately, they've just had a couple setbacks recently. So they've kind of dropped a little bit, but they have an opportunity definitely to move up, back up again to where we thought they would be early in the season.
Yep, probably a little surprised if you showed me this ranking. Certainly very surprised at the beginning of the season. If you said, hey, you got Boise sitting right now in 21st out of all these teams, I probably would have laughed at you because that's not at all what I thought where they would be. So let's move up into our middle pack here, the middle third, if you will. So some of the big movers here, we've got Illinois moving up into the top 20. They're up 7 positions here, finally starting to play, I think, the football you were expecting kind of from the get-go here. They had a struggle early on, but they're definitely playing better. And Fresno State moving up 3 here. They're knocking on that top 10 door again. We have them here at 11th, and they've got big games. We just talked about them coming up and what they have. They've got UNLV coming up here this week. And that's a make or break for both of these teams. One of these whoever wins this game is, again, pushing towards that Mountain West Conference championship game. The other one's got an uphill battle and is going to need some help. So a huge game for Fresno and UNLV coming up.
Yes, absolutely. And we keep talking about UNLV and their chance to keep moving up. And they have all of their goals in front of them.
Yeah.
They can move up massively as the season goes on. They've played really well, above what we thought they would do. Their only losses to a Michigan team, who last week was our number 1 team in the power rankings, or 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And it is a top 5 team in the country.
Right.
So definitely a lot of opportunity for them. Illinois, I think they're kind of finally back to where I thought they were going to be. Not a top 10, not a top flight team in the Big Ten, but kind of in that middle of the pack, and maybe has an outside chance for challenging for a Big Ten West crown.
Right.
They've had some positive momentum, whereas other teams in that group, Maryland and Iowa, have had some stumbles, and are dropping back, and we could see a flop. Whereas Maryland and Iowa were doing really well early in the season. And now Illinois and Rutgers are moving up. So
for sure. And you see here Washington State, the first time that we've done this, they are not in our top 10. Had that huge loss, and I still think they're a very solid team. I think right here at 12 is about where they're at right now. Could see them getting back into the top 10 if they have a good end to the second half of their season here, but they do drop out of the top 10, down 3 positions from where we had them last time.
Yeah, like you said, still a good, solid team. They actually have one of the better wins on their resume. I was looking at a list today of teams that have wins against ranked teams.
Okay.
And their win against Oregon State, they're one of, I think there might only be like 8 teams in the country who have wins against ranked teams. Like it's, so they have a good win in there. They've had a couple disappointing losses. They have a lot of season left to go. They can work their way back in there, but I agree with you. Right there in that like 10, 11, 12 range, it seems to make sense for them.
Yeah. Are you ready to get to our top 10?
I am.
Let's
excited.
Get there. So this is the first time we actually have 2 Mountain West teams in the top 10. We've had 1 the past 2 go-arounds. We've got 2. So let's look at 8, 9, and 10 here.
Yeah.
We've got Air Force, we've got USC, and we've got Wyoming coming in right there at 10th. We do have, I'll get to the 7th place team here. We have a tie, so you're going to see 2 7s. We have a tie between 7th and 8th, and it's a true tie. But put Air Force here as the 8 seed. And really 2 really strong teams, Air Force and Wyoming. Again, big game here for Wyoming this week against Boise. I think they should win that game, but it is in Boise, so you never know what's going to happen there. But they're coming off their bye week and should just have a lot of momentum coming into this game. So USC, a little bit of a stumble here, or a lot of bit of a stumble here. And frankly, when we were doing these, I struggled on where that I wanted to put USC, because we've talked before about how good their offense is, but how bad their defense is. And I think I said last power ranking, I believe is the episode where I said it's going to come to a head eventually, and 2 straight losses for them.
USC has gotten into the meat of their schedule. They're right in the thick of the hardest part of their schedule, and their defense just keeps coming back to bite them. And even this last game, they had some offensive struggles as well. Against a solid Notre Dame defense. They're just kind of dropping like a rock. You were spot on when you said that to point them out as a team that could start dropping, that they were going to face some tough challenges. And honestly, the way it's going, I think they're going to continue to drop.
I would say next time we do this, they may not be a top 10 team.
And the other 2 teams in there, the Mountain West teams you talked about, Wyoming, hugely overachieving this year. They took that tough, close loss to Air Force.
Right.
Fantastic game, 2 really good teams. So Wyoming's had to play Fresno and has had to play Air Force already. Which we talked about Wyoming having this tough schedule, but they've handled it. I mean, they've handled it pretty well. They didn't get through unscathed.
Right.
It is what it is, but they've handled it pretty well, and they definitely deserving to be in the top 10. And Air Force just continues to impress.
Yes.
They are on that track as the top group of 5 team in the country, I think, right now. If they continue to win, and I don't even know if they have to go undefeated, and that would certainly help. If they could be an undefeated Mountain West champion, they are set for a New Year's Six bowl if that happens. They're cruising at altitude right now,
and that's right. And into the teens. They're 19 now in the country. I was glad to see them get up above into the top 20. I think it's well deserved. And we actually have them moving up 4 spots. We had them in 11th last time. That was before the win against Wyoming and the win against Navy, but really the win against Wyoming pushing them up. Really good things, I think, from Air Force. Excited to see how the season ends up for them. So let's get into our middle of the top 10 pack. We'll go with our 4, 5, 6, 7. So you'll see UCLA here at 7th. Again, that was a tie with Air Force in terms of where we had them. And I'll say here going forward, our top 10 was almost identical. Other than we had UCLA and Air Force flip-flopped between 7 and 8. we were identical with our top 10. So we got Oregon State sitting here. You mentioned them earlier. That huge win against, or the huge Washington State win against Oregon State. Yeah. Really, the only real blemish on Oregon State's record. They just keep rolling here. Obviously, Penn State with that loss to Oregon State, they're down 2 here into 5th. And then Oregon sitting again right at 4th. We didn't have them moving up or down. Very close game against Washington. Really can't punish them for that. Then the win here this last week. So there's the middle of that top 10.
Yeah, and I think you may have missed UCLA in there at 7th. I'm not sure if you mentioned them.
Well, I mentioned they were tied.
Oh, okay. All right, they were tied. Okay, yes. So that, we said in the last time we did the rankings that things would start to sort themselves out because some of these teams were playing each other.
Right.
And so, that had happened before with Washington and Oregon.
Right.
And, Washington got that huge win over Oregon. I really thought there was a chance they might move back into number 1 in our rankings. But, they kind of had not a great showing against Arizona State.
Not at all. Right.
Penn State playing Ohio State, we said that would sort themselves out.
Right.
Ohio State got the win at home.
Yep.
Penn State, awesome defense. The defense looked fantastic.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm a Penn State fan. And I was highly impressed with the defense. The offense just didn't show up on the road.
Right.
We talked about this in the rapid reaction video, but like you said, you made a great point. The difference between these two teams, both great defenses, both teams had some struggles on offense. The difference is Ohio State has that Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe the best wide receiver prospect of his generation,
right,
to go into the NFL.
Yeah.
And when Ohio State, when they were struggling on offense, when they were getting shut down, they could go back to that security blanket, and he's a top level elite player, and that was really the difference in that game.
And they always didn't do it in the beginning. As the game went on, I felt like they did more of that.
They kept feeding them. It was smart, very smart by them. So that sorted themselves out. All those teams, though, that pack there, Oregon, Penn State, Oregon State, probably 3 of the best one-loss teams in the country,
no doubt.
And all 3 of them still have a shot at their conference championship.
Yep.
If they can win out, they have a lot of goals in front of them. They have a chance to move back up. So it has sorted itself out, but all 3 of those still in the hunt for their conference championship and maybe even a sneak into college football playoff.
Right, absolutely. Well, let's get to our top 3. We do have a little bit of movement here.
Yeah.
So staying at number 1, Michigan. No need to knock them off. I mean, they're just doing what they do. I've been saying for weeks now, to me, they're the best team in the country, not just in our poll, but overall, even better than Georgia. We've got Ohio State moving up into that 2nd spot, mainly because of that big win against Penn State, but also that mediocre win for Washington against Arizona State. I mean, coming out of the Oregon game, I go, oh man, Washington's going to go back into number 1 for us. And then they lay the massive stinker. Yeah, they won the game, but again, no offensive touchdowns. It just blows me away. Yeah. I can't see keeping them at 2. That's why I switched them. You apparently thought the same thing. Yep. They actually drop here. They go down to number 3.
Yep. And we were consistent on that. We both had them as number 3. Which is still very, very good team, having a great season.
Yep.
If they continue to win out, even if they win ugly games, close games, they will be in the conference championship game, and if they win that, they'll be in the college football playoff.
Yep.
But just not impressive against Arizona State. I believe, I was kind of looking at some things and conversing with some University of Washington fans.
Okay.
And apparently Arizona State, something about the Sun Devils, that's like their Achilles heel. They've had trouble against them other years. I don't know what it is.
They put a hex on them.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know if the coaching staff over there just has some. I don't know what it is, but apparently they have trouble with them in other years as well. So they got the win. They move on, but not impressive enough to move back up into first.
Not when you compare it against the Ohio State win.
Exactly. And so that's the next team I want to talk about, Ohio State. We've already kind of talked about it. They got the great win at home against Penn State. Their defense was really good. They did continue to struggle on offense a little bit. Now, Penn State is top 5 defense in the country.
Yeah.
So it is, you would expect them to have some difficulties, but Kyle McCord looked shaky again early.
Yeah.
I don't really know that their running game really got on track, but they do have that trump card. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. one of the best, if not the best, all-around football player in the country that they can go to. It kind of makes you wonder if they get back into the college football playoff, if they play some more complete teams,
right?
Will they be able to do that again? But either way, give them tons of credit.
Yep.
They're solidly in second place in our rankings, which leaves us to the last team, Michigan. Now, you've been high on Michigan all year.
I have.
We've been on them with betting. We've been perfect. I think 8-0 for the year.
Yep.
Betting on them. They started a little slow when Harbaugh was out.
Right.
And they've been just crushing people.
Yes.
Now, over the weekend, as we were watching these games, the news has broken that they are involved in a scouting, stealing signals, possible cheating scandal.
Right.
More evidence today, I guess, or reporting today that evidence has been presented to the NCAA that they have filmed over the last 3 years, filmed, I think, at 11 different team stadiums.
Yeah, you sent me some of that info, and this is it's been going on for a while.
Right, and it's an actual University of Michigan employee,
right?
So who's getting a salary in the football staff, getting a salary from the university, bought tickets, sent people there. They apparently have video evidence of them recording both sidelines, both teams, of their signals. So we don't know how, at this point, we don't know how that's going to work out. There's rumors of banning them from the postseason, of suspending Harbaugh again, of keeping them out of potentially keeping them out of the championship game. But all that's rumors, speculation. We have no idea. So at this point, all we have to go on is their performance this season, which has been obviously the number one performance of our of our teams.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. At this point, it's very early on. It definitely sounds like obviously something's going on there, but I'm gonna stick strictly with wins, losses, how the team's playing, and Michigan is they are crushing it. The past 4 weeks, super impressive. So
J.J. McCarthy is now the betting favorites for the Heisman Trophy,
and as well he should be.
Yeah, and honestly, when you look at their I can't find a weakness really in their team. They might not have, you look at some teams, you could say this team has the best passing game, this team has the best running game.
Yeah,
this team they're just good in all areas, like maybe top 5 in the country in all areas,
everywhere.
Maybe not number 1, but they're top 5 in just basically every area. So I don't really see any weaknesses. I guess we'll see what happens. And I'm thinking for our viewers that we may do a special update episode on that later on in the week as more facts come out. I'm thinking you and I kind of discussed that as a possibility. So you guys should look for that episode to come out.
Summarize that here as we get a little more information here. So let's go back through these real quick. I'll put them all back up again. So looking at the bottom, some of our big movers here on the downward side, we had San Diego State down 8. We had Northwestern, who we didn't really talk about, but they were down 5. And we had Utah State, again, somebody we didn't really talk about, but they were down 7. When you look at the middle of the pack, we've got Fresno State pushing back up 3 spots, getting close to that top 10. We've got Illinois up 7, one of our biggest movers, getting into that top 20, back to closer to where we thought, or at least Steve thought they would be here for the season. And then again, looking at our top 10, we've got Michigan sitting there, number 1 overall. Ohio State moving into that 2nd spot. Washington down 1 into the 3rd spot. And then 2 Mountain West teams, Air Force and Wyoming, breaking our top 10. So that's where we sit headed into week 9, Steve.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited. A lot more big games coming up in the rest of October to November in the Big Ten and in the Mountain West. We keep saying this is the game of the year of the Mountain West, and we have another game of the year, another game of the year. They just keep coming.
Well, this UNLV Fresno game this week is for these 2 teams. It's not gonna be the game of the year for the Mountain West, I don't think. But for these 2 teams, one of them is gonna get pushed into a prime position to make the conference championship game. One of them is gonna need help after this game. So really interesting game with the UNLV and Fresno State.
And where Fresno is positioned in our rankings, and has UNLV has been continuing to climb, and we've identified them as a fast riser. Whoever wins that game we could possibly have 3 Mountain West teams in our top 10
for sure. Yeah, especially if USC continues to do what they've been doing. You're 100% correct. So, hey, we thank you for tuning in. Let us know your thoughts on this top 32, I guess, as it is, and specifically maybe the top 10. Maybe where you have a difference of opinion. We are going to have another expansion video focused on the Pac-12 coming out shortly. We're also going to have our picks episode coming out on Thursday morning, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel. Lots of stuff happening here on the Big Mountain. And with that, we'll see you next time on The Big Mountain.